What the hell? Are we not going to answer the whole question as to why Moon was dead? Hopefully they didn't just do that just for shock value. They're just like, okay, we're just going to take that and put that over here. We're not going to answer that question. Continue the story. Moon's alive. Don't worry. Just continue on. I don't know. At this point, it really does puzzle me. Why was Moon dead? I mean, I could think of two different reasons. One being the fact that they were probably just trying to push Nice over the edge. Like somebody in the background, I don't know, put a body double there, and then Nice came home, seen that, and that's why he jumped off. But it didn't seem like he had an expression on his face like, I just seen the person that I love die. And it does seem like, based on how we see this episode play out, Nice and Moon, at least Moon wasn't a fan of Nice. It didn't seem like they were a lovey-dovey couple. It's just the society itself kind of pushed them together. I don't know. At the same time, I guess the other theory that I had was that maybe Moon died. And Moon that we had in this episode was a replacement. But again, it got into her history. I don't think that's going to be the fact there. Again, it begs the question as to why did he see Moon dead? I don't know. I have an ongoing theory that I think, based on the PVs, honestly, one of the characters is going to have the ability to change reality. And so maybe possibly somebody was just trying to make him go over the edge, but not actually kill her. Give Lin Ling, who is now Nice, some sort of vision that she's dead, which is something that he wouldn't want, and to push him. But again, they didn't play off it. They didn't play off it. Like, nothing in this episode really did play into the fact that he's seen her dead. It just feels like, hopefully not, shock value in the last episode, and then go, it didn't actually happen. It made for a funny joke opening this episode, literally having him go, where she's at, and then suddenly he looks over and goes, oh, no, she's still alive. And then he goes to ask her for something, and she's like, no. Really good episode, though. I think episode 2, writing-wise, overall, was a really solid episode over episode 1. I actually liked episode 2 a lot more because it didn't rely on the shock value. The overall storytelling of the episode was really solid. Just having the two of them get to know each other, get a little bit more insight into who Nice was as a character, get into Moon, setting her free, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, even having the villain of the episode actually be well wrote. Like, there's a reason for him, and it getting into, again, Nice's history. But I think overall, it still presented a few question marks that make me kind of question how their power works. I think what they brought up with Moon sort of makes me have another theory as to why Nice himself is dead. Getting into the idea that the people, the believers of the heroes themselves, they have control over their power. Now, that could strictly be how Moon's power works, specifically because they want them to be together so much that her power literally only allows her to get near to him. Which I feel so bad for the girl. And again, it's so well wrote in the idea that it makes sense as to why she wants to get the hell out of there. I turned into Nice's girlfriend. I became the girlfriend character, and that's all I am. I don't want this anymore. I want freedom, but my power now just brings me to him, and my contract makes me have to be with him all the time. But I think overall, it does sort of still leave open the door as to, yes, the mystery as to what happened to Nice. What eventually pushed him over the edge. And playing into what Miss J said, the idea that every single hero will come to this choice making was the thing that pushed him over the edge. Was that his friend? Was it because he left his friend behind? Because he left Rek behind? And because Rek had to become the villain character? He had to become the rival character to the coolest person ever. Nice is so nice. He is the nice guy. And this guy's the bad guy. Was it because of that friendship being torn apart and him being pushed off to the side what eventually led him over the edge? Or again, was it him coming home to a vision, a possibly dead Moon, that caused him to go over the edge? But also, was it just a morphing of his power? Did the people, does his fans, did they push him over the edge? Question mark. I don't know. There's like 3 different theories there. But anyways, let's get in the episode proper and dig into these interesting bits of this series. I'm loving this. I'm loving Tu Bian X. This is turning out to be so much more better wrote than I'd originally expected. I just thought this show was just going to be a pretty looking show, and that was pretty much it. But yes, opening up the episode with a little bit of history as to Moon, that she was a traveling blogger, got a fandom. At some point, yes, she was a hero too, and she saved somebody. Nice saved her, and then thus her power kind of blew up from there. And because she was contracted to the company, they forced her to have to be the girlfriend. And it doesn't seem like she was too happy about that. But yeah, I can see that. Again, that whole aspect of the society wants this. And in order for them to make Nice more powerful, they're going to force them to be together. That's unfortunately, again, that idea of taking what is heroes and corporatizing it. Make it into a business. You have to do everything for your shareholders, which, again, is your power? It kind of compounds upon itself. But yes, she was saved. They became together. And yes, she's not dead. I like how it like briefly shows, and now she's my girlfriend, and now she's dead. But no, now she's not. Nope. We're just going to completely ignore that. We're going to take that death thingy there, we're going to stick it over here, and we're never going to address it again. But yeah, I like the fact that, and I knew this was coming. Before we had her actually dead in the previous episode, I knew that now that they were together in that apartment, in that room, we were going to get to see the real side of her. I knew this nice and reserved, quiet Moon that we kept seeing in the first episode, I knew it was going to be fake. I knew the moment that he was going to be alone in that room with her, we're going to have that moment where suddenly she goes, ugh, what are you doing? And the legs are spread open, and she's just kind of just relaxing. And yeah, I knew this was going to be the case. But no, yeah, she's like, who the hell are you? You know, drop the act. You're not nice. And I can see that. Again, what we kind of see based on how she didn't like the original Nice, it does seem like he was a perfectionist. This is a guy that wanted everything perfect. And again, that could be another thing that did leave him to walk over the edge. He was a perfectionist. And so, yes, she's going to pick up very quickly, yeah, this guy is not him. This is not him. When the doors are closed, he acts completely different. Who are you? Immediately, she picks up on it. Yeah, he's dead. Calls up Miss J. You bought a replacement. But yeah, that's when we find out that Moon is never like this, never wanted this whole thing, wants to break up. Miss J's explained that you're under contract, you have to be together. But don't worry, you don't have to be boyfriend-girlfriend for very much longer, because now they want you married. She's like, no, hey, ain't gonna happen. But yes, this is when we get the lockdown for the entire month. And this is a cute little segment, and I did like how they managed to make the two characters come together, which does suck for how the episode ends, and the idea that it did seem like Moon was sort of opening that door. Like, is this what you want? You can follow me. It was literally, the episode was ending was literally her saying, do you want to follow me? We can be together kind of thing. And he chooses to stay where he at. This is my new role. I become nice. I want to become this thing. He's always wanted to be a hero. Again, that was his whole dream, was to become a hero. So he wants to stay there. But it was interesting if you think about it, because as we see this sort of relationship develop by them having fun and being locked up in this room, and he's always loved Moon. But you can also say that was sort of a fake love, that she was inspiring him through the ads that he was making for her, that it wasn't really her. And yes, she was always putting on an act publicly, and he was creating those ads based on that act that she was doing. But they did kind of form a bond here, and you can kind of question, what was his original dream? Was it that he wanted to become a hero and she was inspiring him? Or was he just in love with her? Was he in love with this fake Moon that he eventually seemingly falls in love with the real thing? What was your actual dream? What is your dream? I'm going to go get my dream. What is your dream? I like how, yeah, at some point she's like, you want to see your real wife? Lets the hair down. And he just goes doki doki. And she's destroying things. And he's just going doki doki. And I'm like, okay, I'm not really for the whole like super violent thing, but I do agree with the guy. Hair down, much better. It was much better. But anyways, yeah, they're hanging out together. I did like a little bit insight into Nice, again, the idea of like having this statue, the fact that he's a perfectionist. She's kind of pushing him, saying, you know, leave me alone. And then realizing at some point, oh, you really are different than him. Here, throw this at the statue. Okay, that's all. And then they start just having a food fight. It was a cute little segment. I think they really did this little bit here well, because it did seem like Moon was rightfully pushing back. She's being forced in this situation. My heart breaks for her. Like, she seemed like a nasty person. Even later on, she apologized for being a nasty person. I get it. This girl was forced to be this. She wanted to do this whole traveling thing, and they forced her into this role and stuck her in this cage with this guy that seems like he was probably a D-bag. He was probably bad. But an interesting thing here. At some point, after they have fun, eventually they wind down for the day, and then he questions her once again. Why don't you use your power? Just get out of here. And that's when she reveals that all her power does is teleport her somewhere, but it's swayed by her followers. Her believers change her power itself. And so now her teleport, all it does, because they want her together with Nice so bad, her power just makes her teleport to where Nice is. And so she can't really use it for any other purpose. Again, this sort of gives me an interesting thought process as to how their power itself works. Now, yes, it might just be strictly to Moon. Because she has the ability to teleport and everybody wants her to be with him, it makes more sense, the idea that it can be manipulated by the people. But it does beg the question for other individuals that will end up exploring, getting into how their power itself works. It begs the question as to if the believers can alter those powers. So far, all we get a sense of for Nice and his power is that he's like the Superman character. He's super strong and he could fly around. I don't know if they're going to get into him having any other powers. It's sort of indicated with the last episode that Moon might be able to fly too. I don't know if that's going to be the case. She might just be moving around with teleportation. But it's interesting to get into the idea of possibly each one of these individual users of abilities, if they'll be warped over time, and not just the expectations that people place upon them, but other factors of their power could be manipulated by their believers. And again, sort of gave me a little bit of theory around Nice and the idea that his death may have been caused by people altering his power. Could it be simply that he's walking there and suddenly his power stopped working because people wanted it to stop working? I don't know. I don't think that's going to be necessarily the case, but it does beg the question there. Interesting as well, having him actually ask her, did you ever actually like him? She's like, no, I was just contracted. This is literally just a contract. And yeah, that she's tired of being an accessory. She's tired of being the girlfriend. And again, I don't blame her. But yes, we cut forward a month. She's like, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to give it up. You've threatened to die like 12 times. It's not going to work. But yes, that's when we bring up the interesting theory that Ling Ling has. Like, yeah, we can technically just, cause a breakup, which sparks this genius idea of Miss J to just straight kill her off. What would be better than them getting married? Have some tragic story about how Moon dies in his arms and everybody would flip out about that. Which, yes, once again, turning heroes into a business. Which this whole segment that they cut forward, I mean, we get into a little bit of information. At some point, it cuts back again. The idea that their whole plan here was to have him show up, and he's the rival character, and he's supposed to take down Moon and take her out. It doesn't play like that. But yes, I love this whole segment because, yes, they're getting married, and suddenly out of nowhere, Rex shows up. And Rex, like this guy that you would assume is going to immediately go after Moon. And they even had him at the beginning of the episode. They teased him at the very beginning of the episode that he's like this person that's a stalker. The assumption is that if he can't have Moon, nobody can have her. He's the Moon stalker. But no, it wasn't even the case. He's a friend of Nice, and he wanted to talk to him, and they haven't been together forever. And so he just wants to talk to Nice. It was a good little bit there. But yeah, the animation here, as per usual with the CGI, is fantastic. I love that incorporation of the 2D art, the smoke, them kind of just darting around. And yes, having a funny little comedic beat in with it. Having this fact that, yeah, everybody's expecting him to take Moon and run off, and Nice has to rescue her. But the entire time, he just tried to get Nice alone so he could talk to him. Why didn't you answer my text? Yes, I did think they were going to go with the whole BL route. I thought it was going to be a BL route. I really honestly thought it was going to be the case, that like, this idea of that your expectation is that he's in love with Moon, but no, he's actually in love with Nice. But no, it turns out that they were just really close friends, and he missed his friend. And yeah, at some point he realized this isn't Nice. What happened to my friend? I need my, what'd you do with my friend? What happened to him? It's funny at first, but eventually you get that little gut punch of, oh, this is actually a serious situation here. But yeah, it was funny. Everybody's watching. Miss J's ticked off. She's like, we spent so much money on this script. Everything's supposed to play out. Like, we put so much money into this big, massive breakdown arc about how Nice is going to lose the one that he loves. So you can't mess us up. But yeah, they're all fighting. Moon's constantly going, attack me. I like how when they get up in the pillars later on, like it starts to get serious, and he's like, tell me what happened to Nice or I'm going to take her out. And Moon's down there going, oh no. And Nice is like, no, dude, he's serious. Get out of there. It was funny. But yes, eventually them getting in a fight. I like how at some point he, yes, tells him that Nice is dead. He ended it. He's gone. He's not coming back. The guy's getting really upset. And at some point, Miss J's telling him, get out of there. He's way above your caliber. And again, this goes back to like how it's sort of played out, how the power itself worked. It's based on how many followers you have, how many people have their trust in you. And so, yes, he did take upon himself the role of Nice, but it doesn't seem like he is the power of Nice. He has to rebuild that trust with everybody, not directly, but indirectly. Yes, everybody believes that he's nice, but he's not going to just get carried over all of his power. He has to make appearances to sort of relink him to himself. And so he's not like high caliber level. I don't think that this guy, Rek, was as powerful as the original Nice. And again, I think Lin Ling has to gain that power by relinking everybody to himself. Either way, it is interesting that this guy is as powerful as he is. You would think that somebody like Rek would not be that powerful. As we get to see, yes, at some point, Miss J's saying, get the hell out of there. What are you doing? Get out of there. We'll get other heroes to come take him on. You're not up to his level. And yes, at some point, he's like, no, this is my rival. I have to handle this. Goes over there. They have the fight. I like how, yes, Moon is using the teleportation to kind of move him around. Kind of reminds me of that fight in Jujutsu Kaisen. I really love that fight with the guy with the clapping, and they were kind of swapping places. I love that stuff. Yeah. Compared to the first episode, there was certain points where it felt in this little segment 2D animation like it was just a lot of kind of flinging around and stuff just chasing them around, the pillars chasing them around. And there was a few points that were a little bit rough, especially like that transition to Moon shooting behind her. That little kind of transition there looked a little bit off, but it was super good. Like everything else was just fantastic in there. The animation was... like again, like the whole segment before in the little wedding area, reception area, and this part right here, just chef kiss, which is great because there's certain shows this season where it's like, oh my gosh, the animation here is horrible, and to have this as like a massive contrast isn't helping because the animation here is phenomenal. But anyways, yes, eventually punches them, says, I knew it all along. But this is where it gets into what I was talking about earlier and how it's odd that Rek himself is as powerful as he is, because we see right here that yes, Rek and Nice used to be friends. They were pop idols together. They were a duo, and everybody loved them. They were just hugely popular. But at some point, they got so much popularity, they became heroes, and they signed a contract. And with this company, they decided to make them, yes, the hero Nice, and then the rival character, Rek. Now, here's where it gets into it's odd that he's as powerful as he is, because you would assume with the public image being that these two became enemies, and Rek is constantly trying to take down Nice and constantly steal away Moon, you would think that his popularity would plummet. You would think this guy lost all of his fandom. But it does kind of make me wonder if there's and I totally thought that we were going to get into this, and it would have been really cool if they did, actually. And there's probably a reason why they didn't, is because this is sort of a toxic fandom. The fact that they're going against each other isn't going to be a detriment to the popularity and the fandom, because there's going to be a lot of people that will thirst ship them. Because they're rivals, it creates the thirst for them to be together even more. And that fandom will run like crazy. That fandom will be so passionate and so huge, it will be driven by the fact that they're always against each other because everybody desires them to be together. And I almost thought they were going to get into that with how this plays out, and this idea that you have literally, as they're fighting, you have the fandom that wants the two of them to ship together, and they're going to be fueling them like crazy. And then you have this other fandom that's wanting Nice to overcome the rival in order to save Moon. And their power level just like skyrockets. Anyways, I thought they were going to do that, but they didn't do that. But anyways, yeah. Cool little insight into, again, Rek and how they used to be friends. Again, forced to be rivals. And then at some point, yeah, dude gets left behind. Now, it doesn't show like a massive gap there, because he says, and then at some point, and then he calls up Miss J and she says, yeah, he's going on this romance show. That wasn't a big gap there. That wasn't a big time gap there. But we did have, like, obviously with this episode, we had a whole month. And then before that, I think we had like a couple weeks there where he was training. So I can see that little time period being enough that he goes, what happened to my friend? Where'd he go? And again, he said the moment that he heard him, he knew it wasn't him. Went crazy. Where's my friend? He won't answer my texts. This can't be him. What happened to him? It's sad. It's a real sad reality there. Knocking him out, though. But yeah, the little aftermath there, I thought they were going to kill off. I really did think they were going to kill off Moon again. Suddenly the blood there, and I'm like, now, this is supposed to be an act, so that could be fake. And yeah, she's falling, and he catches her, and he's crying, and no, don't worry, it's actually fake. Okay. But I mean, it makes sense to the character. I like that everybody's playing it up. Miss J's like, holy crap, you are a great actor. I'm like, I don't think he's acting. He's realizing right here the Moon that he loves so much is technically dead. He's always looked up to Moon. She's always supported him. And now Moon, as a character, as the hero, is about to die. Everybody will know that he even kind of gives a hint to it later on. Everybody in the public's eye, everybody believes she's dead. And so that trust and that focus is gone, she's losing her powers. She's gone. She's been as a hero deleted. So yeah, obviously he's going to be emotional. He's not acting right there. No doubt he's not acting there. But yeah, he puts on the big show. The slow come down, which was really beautiful, by the way. Pray that she has her freedom, whatever. Which is cool how you use that as a last gift, that she can use her teleportation to get away to somewhere because he said that. It was cool. But yeah, like I said, that little later part there, that end scene right there, having her basically saying goodbye. And again, she's opening the door. You can come with me. I'm finally free. I don't have to be the girlfriend anymore. Thank you so much. Sorry for being a jerk, all that kind of stuff. But again, also leaving that door open. You want to come with me? And she only has that amount of time there. I like how I almost thought they were going to have it where it kind of shuts off at some point because her power finally goes away. But yeah, the idea there is that she's able to make that door one more time. And then you can see her bracelet. It starts to fade away. She's lost that power. And the thing that triggers it is on the news. It mentions he's on the path to becoming one of the 10. So they're establishing right here there is a top 10. Like there's a 10 group, which I imagine based on the ED, that's probably the 10 right there. I think they show pretty much 10 on the screen when they're falling, which yes, doesn't show nice. Doesn't show nice, but again, he's trying to become it. It was a cool little way to end it up. But yeah, then we have the little Enlighter scene. Enlighter is not too happy, and he's lost all of his trust, and that he basically lines up the two of them, realizes that Lin Ling is nice, and he wants to expose it, but he doesn't have the power to. So some minion of the fear shows up and says that he can use him, and he becomes God Eye, which doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all. Which gets in my theories as to what they could do going forward, because I really thought that we were going to do one per episode per character, but it does seem like they want to do multiple episodes for at least Nice. I kind of wonder if Lin Ling will be our first fallen hero. I really do think that they're probably going to have one more episode to Lin Ling, and I think it's going to have him fall. I think God Eye, as he calls himself now, I think God Eye is going to confront the public, expose that Nice is Lin Ling and that Nice himself is dead. And I think the trust in Lin Ling is going to crumble like crazy. And we'll either have him have a full fall, and that will be the conclusion of his story, or possibly he will have to show how they can possibly fall. He's going to lose a lot of his power, but then he's going to have to do something, make a speech, and build himself back up in order to overcome God Eye. And then at that point, yes, apologize to everybody and say, but this is me. I've always looked up to Nice. I became Nice. He's a great person. Now I'm Nice. I think that's what they're probably going to do. They're going to probably use his story as showing how that power can falter, but then rise himself back up. And again, what sort of moon was pressing upon him in this episode? Being you. Don't be nice. Be you. And he might end up rebranding. I wonder if he'll end up rebranding. But that would be probably an interesting way to kind of conclude his story. He could end up dying in the end. But it would be a cool way to kind of conclude his story before we kind of transition off to somebody else. That's my current prediction. Again, I'm still curious as to what the hell the point was to seeing Moon dead. Watch, that's going to be it. Like, we're going to get to the end of the series, and somebody at some point is going to bring up, we never found out why Moon was dead. And everybody's going to be like, oh, yeah, that's right. They never answered that. That's my thoughts on the episode. Really good episode. Talked way too much, but hope you guys enjoyed my video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below, comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe before you leave. Like this content and want to support channel more. I have links in the description below. Great, appreciate it. Until next time, you'll take care.